On today's episode of Beyond Resilience, we're joined by the incredible Joyce Irwin, President and CEO of the Community Health Network Foundation and pancreatic cancer survivor. Join us as we go on a deep dive of the importance of genetic testing and how to know if you're someone who needs to be thinking about getting it.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's so great to be here with you guys this morning.
It's wonderful to be here. So wonderful to be a part of this. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, thank you for coming.
Yeah, definitely. So Joyce, it's so great to see you and to have you on Beyond Resilience and just have the opportunity to really talk and learn a little bit about you and your journey. Before we jump into that, Catherine, what do you think?
Let's start with our first wonderful phrase of what's on your heart. And Jamie, I'm going to let you go first this time, and then I'll follow. And then Joyce, if you'd like to chime in too, please feel free.
What is on my heart? I think I'm really just enjoying this moment and being grounded here this morning. We've had the kids and I were traveling a little bit, and we just got back home a couple of days ago. So we've had a bit of fun chaos, and I'm just taking a breath and just so happy to be here with you guys this morning.
That's a hard one to follow. I echo much of that, my friend. We were traveling as well to northern Michigan, and with our family, we have lots of memories up there with the children, young, with all of my siblings. And my sister is battling stage 4 cancer right now, so it was extra special to be with her and her family. And unfortunately, I'm in Florida, they're in Indy. I'm from Indy, so I don't get a chance to see them as much as I'd like, but it was just really a memory-filled trip, and I'm really grateful to have that time and just to have my family with me. So I'll leave it at that. Yeah, Joyce, if you want to, yeah.
So what's on my heart? My brother that lives in New Hampshire is coming next week, and it'd be the first time that there are 3 of us in my family. I have 2 older brothers that we will all been together since a couple years before COVID. So we're celebrating my middle brother's 50th wedding anniversary, and and I'm hosting. And so the fact that I feel like hosting and kind of cooking for big extended family and coming and all the kids and our nieces, we don't have children, but our nieces and great nieces and nephews is wonderful. And so I am just feel so blessed that I am here. And I'm here able to talk about it, and I'm here able to host my family. So that's a lot on my mind, and I feel very blessed to do that. Because 2 years ago, I can't say that I would have been feeling the same way, but just very, very blessed that I'm going to be able to do that.
Amen. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm so happy for you guys. Yeah.
I'm excited for you.
With that, we've got some, a really important conversation, I think, to have today. And Joyce, we are just so grateful to have you here with us today. And I think we'll just kind of start with just tell us a little bit about you, who you are, where you are, and then feel free to sort of just jump into your journey.
Well, I'm president of Community Health Network Foundation, and a big part of that is that we provide a lot of patient assistance to cancer patients, rides, food, other transportation, and different things like that. And that's always been a calling that I've had, but I never thought that it would happen to me. And so it'd be 2 years, the end of August. It would be Labor Day weekend. I went in for a regular screening test and found, and lo and behold, didn't have any symptoms of cancer, except that I was a little tired. But I've been working a lot, so typical female, I dismissed that. And did what they called an EUS procedure, where they go down your throat, and they were looking at my pancreas. And the year before, they had seen a cyst from an MRI, but didn't think anything much of it. And lo and behold, I had not only 1, but 2 cancer tumors, one on the tail and one on the head of my pancreas. And I was kind of blown away when I came to, and the doctor was there, and then the head of oncology, who's a good friend of mine, was there. I kind of said, "Oh my gosh, it's not good news, is it?"
Yikes.
And I could tell they were both had tears in their eyes, and my husband had tears in his eyes, because when people hear pancreatic cancer, they a lot of times think it's an automatic death sentence, but it doesn't have to be. So I would have chemo for 8 straight hours, and then they would hook me up to, it looked like a fanny pack, but it was a chemo that I was hooked up to 48 straight hours more of chemo. And then I would go in, they would unhook that, and then I would get a shot of Neulasta that would last for a while to kind of build up my strength and energy. I had surgery where they removed my pancreas, my spleen, and my gallbladder. The cancer was contained in those two spots on my pancreas, but because there was no way to, they had to take out my pancreas, there was no way to reattach some of the other organs, so they had to, that's why they had to take the spleen, and they had to take the um, gallbladder out. And I was able to recover enough that I was able to go back to work full time. So I feel very blessed that my energy level today is very high. I'm able to
Yeah.
work full time. I'm able to go out and eat with friends, and feel very, very blessed that I'm able to do that. Some things are a little bit different than it was before I got cancer, but some of the things are that you just figure out how to work around some of the issues, and you just keep going forward. And that's probably been my motto, just to keep pushing and going forward.
That's amazing. I think there's 2 points that kind of resonate with me in what you said, and that's having purpose, having a purpose-filled life. And it was engrounded in you before you had cancer. Now it's even that much more impactful and meaningful after you've had cancer. And then the second part of that is serving other people and getting our minds and our hearts off ourselves and the woe is me, and really embracing that service towards others, which it sounds like you've done so beautifully. But I also feel like that's probably helped you heal and as you say, move forward in your life.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure. For sure. One of the things that I want to circle back to that you've mentioned a couple of times is this idea that pancreatic cancer is an automatic death sentence. And the screening that you did was such an important part of, honestly, of you being here today. And yet an EUS is not something that everybody gets, right, as part of their screening. So I wonder if you can talk a little bit about the kinds of screening that you had and why you had that.
So I was, for a while, not only did I, during COVID, I was running in charge of the foundation, but I was also in charge of the oncology division within MD Anderson Community Health Network. And as a part of that, you start talking with doctors about your background. And my primary care doctor and also the head of oncology knew that my mother had passed away from pancreatic cancer. And sadly, hers was a case that she found it, and 3 months later, she passed away. And also, her sister had passed away from pancreatic cancer about 3 months before my mother had passed away. So within 6 months, we lost two family members to pancreatic cancer. And so they wisely suggested that I go through and do genetic testing. And when I filled out all the paperwork and really researched all the cancer that was in my family, I wasn't surprised at all when I was diagnosed that I had the BRCA2 gene. So I was put into a high-risk clinic where they were testing me, that put me in an elevated way so that I could do either the MRI or the EUS to really look at, that's what the protocols call for looking for pancreatic cancer. It'd be 3 years in December that I had a double mastectomy and reconstruction surgery, not because I had breast cancer, but because that was an elevated risk for breast cancer. And I had already had a hysterectomy probably 25 years ago that removed my ovaries and other organs that are associated with BRCA2 cancer. So I still have a couple other types of cancers, but because I'm in a high risk, I get uh, I'm taking an ongoing chemotherapy drug. Not that I have cancer anymore, but really as a preventative. I look at it almost like I'm taking like I take my vitamins every day. That I take so that I won't get other types of cancer. And so through that genetic testing, so that I would highly like to encourage people that have those conversations with your doctors. Make sure that they're seeing that in your medical record about the incidence of cancer in your family. If there are instances of cancer, talk to them about getting genetic testing, because that's how they found mine. That elevated for me to be able to get the genetic testing to find out that I am BRCA2 positive, and so that elevated the types of screening that were called for my particular situation. And if it hadn't been for that, they probably would not have found that I did have pancreatic cancer. And we found it early, and because we found it early, I had many more treatment options to be able to do because I did have the BRCA2 gene. And that knowledge is power. I had people say, well, I don't want to know that if I have it. Well, the alternative isn't so good either, to not know. And so I felt that gave me power. That gave me the knowledge to be able to make informed decisions. And that gave my doctors that were treating me many more types of options as well.
We really do need to take responsibility for our own health and having those important conversations with our doctor. My sister had a prophylactic bilateral mastectomy as well because she had the ATM genes for breast cancer, and we had no idea it ran in our family. But what you're saying, genetic testing is so important, and it's probably not too early to get that done.
And because of that, my brothers then had one brother decided to wanted to do the genetic testing because he had children and two daughters, and wanted to know that did he carry the gene also. My other brother decided that he didn't want to do that because he didn't want to know. So I've encouraged that brother's sons to get genetic testing to find out, do they maybe perhaps carry that gene.
So important. You bring up such an important point, and that is, that there are people who don't get screening or who don't find out about genetic testing because they're afraid. The reality is, not doing the screening, not having the information doesn't make the cancer go away, doesn't make the disease or illness disappear. But doing the screening just allows you to pick it up as early as possible, so you do have more options, and the likelihood of getting rid of that disease is much, much higher.
Think about where I am and what I've been through and the treatment that I've been through. I'm so much stronger. I'm so much better able to, I'm able to go out for walks. I'm able to go out with friends. I'm able to go out and eat, and I have some restrictions, the things that I can't eat, but that's very, very minor compared to what the problems that I would have had or if I hadn't done that.
I think what you said was so true. Just waiting that extra 6 months would have been so detrimental. And the fact that you can probably sleep pretty well at night, knowing what you've been through and knowing what you have, and that you've got everything's out in the open now, and that you're able to deal with all of that and then choose your mindset, how you're going to respond to that, and allowing others. And what's amazing to me, and I want to hear more about this, but how you're able to help others through your own experience, who are really probably struggling with trying to find that moving forward motto, and are feeling stuck and sad and lonely and without a lot of hope. And you're able to be that bright light of hope for people. And it's amazing to me that your story is able to implement that actually in your work, which is so commendable.
Thank you. When I went out for my 1-year checkup in February to MD Anderson in Houston, because that's where I had my surgery, that I was walking around, I had my hair back, I felt pretty good. My coloring was pretty good. And I felt guilty because looking around to other patients that were there and they were going through where I was a year prior to that. And I look back at pictures and I look back at that and I told my doctors, I said, I felt a little guilty because if you would look at me, I didn't look like I'd really ever been sick. And, my doctor just said, no, they need to see you. They need to see that a year later, how much better you're doing, that you do look normal, that you do look healthy, and you are feeling good. They need to realize that a year from now, that they can be looking and feeling the same way that you're feeling. When you're going through it, you just feel you feel, I hate to say this, you feel like crap, and you feel like that you had your gut punched out, and that you're falling, and that you feel like that kind of sometimes day to day that you're not going to feel good, and this is the way that I'm going to feel for the rest of my life, and to say no, you're not going to feel that way for the rest of your life. That you can feel normal and you can feel good again, and there is hope out there, that you will work through it.
I love that.
Such an important
Consistent.
message.
That's great.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, it's
That's
Yes.
awesome.
wonderful that I can look back, that I can see the 2 years coming up, and that kind of the year that I went through the treatment and the surgery, that yeah, I felt pretty bad, and I had days that I felt pretty bleak, that I would be falling and I would feel like, what's wrong with me? But then I can look back and say that there is hope, that you can feel better. And I think a big part of that was I think when you said giving myself purpose and giving myself that reason to kind of keep going really, really helped me.
So it sounds like when you had those low moments, really having purpose and focusing on other people and supporting other people was really important for you. One thing I want to circle back to, if it's okay, is genetic testing. And because I'm imagining people out there as they're listening to this conversation are like, well, how do I know what to do? And what do I do? What screening, besides mammograms or PSAs or colonoscopies? Um, how do I know if I need to do other things? And I want to highlight something that you brought up that just is really the path forward, right? And that is, talk to your doctor. Dig into your own family history, right? When you're going in for your checkups and appointments, it's pretty common for them to circle back and touch on, has anything changed in your family history, or can you talk about your family history of X, Y, or Z? Cancer is definitely one of those things, with the explosion of available information on genetic cancer risk. It is important to touch on that on a relatively frequent basis with your doctor, right? So know your family history and discuss that with your primary care doctor. Um, and from there, if they don't have the information or there's any uncertainty, and you have a family history of multiple relatives with cancer, um, I would say explore that with a cancer predisposition clinic, with a high risk clinic, just to say, I have the history of cancer in these relatives. My primary care doctor isn't aware or doesn't, can't provide the guidance that I need necessarily. That's okay. Can you tell me, should I get any genetic testing done? Is there any screening that's important for me? Because again, that comes back to knowledge is power. Your story just is such a beautiful illustration of that, of really, exploring, knowing your family history, exploring that, and capitalizing on that to you know really elucidate the right path for cancer prevention for you.
Jamie, that you are so right about that. I mean, because my mother passed away from pancreatic cancer, and her sister, my mother was one of 10. We find out that of the 10, all 10 of them had had some type of cancer. And you really don't think about it, because when I was a child or I was younger, I didn't really think about it. It's like, well, you just kind of accept it that they did die of cancer. And when I had to go through and find out and figure out the types of cancer that they did have, all of them were covered by the BRCA2 gene. And you realize the amount of cancer that was in my family, that I was not surprised that I did carry the gene. I understand being afraid. I understand that. But I want to encourage people to not be afraid to have those discussions and seek those options, because that's better than the alternative.
I think I want to echo that sentiment, Joyce, that you said about when we think about our relatives, right, who died, maybe they were older than us as children. We didn't think much about it because they just died of cancer, right? Well, they were older. But I think it's really important to have to think about your family genealogy and really think about, okay, who did die of cancer? What kinds of cancer? Ask those questions of your relatives and really do some soul searching. My sister and I both had breast cancer. We had no idea that it ran in the family. And find out, but we did have relatives that died of some cancer. What do you know? And so I think what your message about really getting this early genetic testing is so important, because there are so many options, as you said, and all you have to do is look at you compared to like if you had waited. And you're right, you do have to go through some minor inconveniences, but the other side of having a stage 4 diagnosis, whatever that happens to be, is extreme. Talk about fear. I mean, that is fear, the ultimate fear, versus just getting this genetic testing. So I think it's important to ask the questions of our relatives who, and it doesn't matter if what types of cancer, it's just cancer in general, right? So if you have cancer in general, you probably need to be getting some types of genetic testing. And I think that's a great message to really bring home.
One of the things that I want to touch on in the detecting part before we wrap up today is one of the screening tests that was recommended for you that you did. We've only used an acronym for, and that is an EUS. And I'm imagining there are people out there who don't know what an endoscopic ultrasound is. And again, not a fun test, and I'll let Joyce describe here in a moment what that is, requires, and that is a very important conversation, a choice, probably a recommendation that was made to Joyce, a choice that she made. Again, so important to know what your options are.
I decided that, taking a day off was probably much more reliable, and much more specific, that I decided that that's what I was going to do, to be able to do that, to have that specificity and reliability of that test.
What I'm thinking is that time was probably of essence. So you were able to move on to the next step instead of having to schedule an appointment for a biopsy, which could have been possibly weeks out. So that's the other benefit of having a test like that, is that you're able to move on and probably schedule surgery.
Right. And so instead of maybe waiting a matter of weeks or days, they had those results. And I moved very quickly then to start chemotherapy to shrink those tumors. And I think about, if we hadn't done that, when you're dealing with a fast growing cancer, days make a big difference. And I was able then to go very quickly from that within a matter of days that I started my chemotherapy.
Yeah. And get your protocol going. Yeah, that's great. That's really amazing. Another plus for getting that genetic testing and then getting the screening done.
And to ask questions, because I ask questions. If it were you, what would you do? And it's a little bit more inconvenient and it takes a little bit more time. But thank goodness that I was able to ask those questions and choose.
What a powerful message and conversation today.
And I'm here.
You
Yeah.
are here, and we
And I'm
got to
doing
talk
that.
to you. Yes,
Yes.
and share this just this important information and story. Your story is so incredibly powerful, Joyce. Thank you so much. I'm wondering, before we wrap up, any final comments or words anyone wants to share?
Well, I love the fact that Joyce has been able to talk so remarkably about her story in such an open fashion and a vulnerable fashion, and to share it with those who really do need this. And I think I really hope that our listeners have been able to take this a really, really important message home and really think about it. And then not only think about it, but then act, because Joyce is such a massive, shining light of an example that if she hadn't done what she did, she wouldn't be here probably today. And I think it gives us all hope, right? And not only that, but what you're doing with your people that you work with. I mean, what a amazing example. It's almost like the good Lord has placed you right where He wants you to be, and touching the people that need it most. So we're really very grateful for coming and sharing your powerful story with us.
Well, thank you. And my final message is, don't be afraid. Ask questions. Take control.
Again, thank you so much, Joyce. And please, listeners, please let us know if questions or concerns or thoughts come up as a result of this conversation. The bottom line, right, is have the conversations and reach out to your own primary care physician. And if they can't provide the support that you need, then have conversations with people who have more information about genetic cancer risk and relevant screening for you, because there's a lot of information out there, and clearly the impact that can have on early detection and saving lives is so critical. So, yeah. Thank you, Joyce.
Yeah,
Thank you.
As always,
Joyce.
so
Appreciate
good to
it.
see you,
Yeah.
and just so grateful for your
Yeah,
time today.
absolutely. Thank you so much.
This podcast is here to support you. If you liked it, please rate, review, follow, and share, since that's the best way to grow a community together. Please leave us comments and feedback. We're here to help.